everybody, and welcome to the season premiere of People Always Ask with Chantelle Doswell. I am a licensed clinical social worker. That's what those little letters stand for after my name, just as a reminder. And I specialize in trauma. And since we all are vaxxed and waxed and ready for these streets, I thought we'd start today outright and the season outright by talking about how to identify trauma bonds. I've been seeing memes everywhere. I've been seeing advice come out everywhere, some of it good, some of it inaccurate. And I really just want to make sure that you know and you know and understand what it really means for you. And so let us get started with the basics. So, definition time. What is a trauma bond? I've heard somebody say that it's any bond between two traumatized people. Thank goodness, take a breath and a sigh of relief. That is not actually what a trauma bond is. A trauma bond usually starts in childhood. A lot of people have childhood abuse, neglect, all types of power dynamics that are really skewed. And in the midst of that dynamic, they form what's called a trauma bond. And so a trauma bond is a system and a cycle. So what that means is, first of all, trauma bonds are a system of rewards and consequences that are actually not natural and intuitive to a person. So typically, there's certain things that make us feel good, make us feel like we're going to expand our lives, expand ourselves, grow, and really move towards something good. There's feelings that come along with that. Those feelings include curiosity, joy, comfort, safety. All of those things are natural reward systems. Natural consequence systems look like pain, discomfort, loneliness, anxiety, fight or flight responses, freezing, right? Feeling like you have to people please. These are all things that are not good feelings in your body and actually indicate something about a situation that isn't healthy. So when we get into a trauma bond, what we find is that we have a unique set of rewards and consequences, not set up by intuition or by the body or by anything that feels natural to the individual, but set up by an external person and sometimes by an external system. So of course you could have a trauma bond with a job, a country, a gang, all sorts of different affiliations that actually might mirror this exact same definition. And so the basics are, you have an individual, a lot of times what people would refer to as a person who's abusive, right? And this person has their own set of rewards and consequences. Within that, you're able to operate only within their rewards and consequences, or else you suffer based on their internal system, right? So a typical trauma bond might look like a reward system of, if you focus on me, you get rewarded. So positive attention, affection, thought, all sorts of things are going to be rewarded. Now, here comes the punishments. Here comes the consequences. And so punishments is probably a more accurate way to discuss trauma bonding than just consequences. Consequences, they can be natural, but punishments, they tend to come from somebody. So what you'll see is that there's an actual lash out, reaction negatively. And now at the most extreme, we're talking about physical abuse or neglect. And then in the less extremes, we're talking about really nasty, judgmental, defensive reactions that are going to indicate that they're punishing you by putting the friendship, the relationship on the line because you are trying to break one of the rules that actually makes this system and cycle function abusively. So now that we know this is actually a system of rewards and punishments set up by a person or system that's abusive, the secondary part is, how would you know if you personally have been through really hard times, really traumatic things with other people, if you yourself are walking into a bond with a friend, a bond with a job, a bond with a romantic partner that's actually a trauma bond? So let's try something together. If you have a piece of paper, if you've got a notebook, take a minute right now to grab it. If you want to grab your cell phone and pull out your notes page, I want us to really get to a place where you feel like you're able to identify what your trauma bond, specifically from your history, would look like. Now, some of us, very few of us, are blessed with a history where we have wonderful attachments that are safe, unconditional, positive regard is there. But many of us come from a background where one of these types of dynamics, where there are actual rewards for certain behaviors that may not be so healthy for us, right? And punishment for behaviors that might include things like self-care, right? That is a common feature of how we think about ourselves within our family systems, within relationships, within sibling dynamics. And so one of the common features and sort of starting places is places where it feels like there might be a bit of a power struggle, where it becomes hard for you to experience yourself as powerful, or where it feels like there's a power struggle, control struggle. We're fighting to see who's going to be able to win. We're starting to blame one another. These are the places where the cycles typically live. And in our bodies, it doesn't feel good, but a lot like any person who experiences something over and over again, and then they are given external rewards and external punishments, they're going to learn to adapt to the system that they're given. So if you have adapted to a system or a cycle that's not healthy for you, let's take a minute now before we even get into identifying what your trauma bond or cycle might look like, to have a little grace with yourself. Take a breath. Make sure that you don't go anywhere right now that you're not prepared to go right now. And always know that this work is always here for you to do. It's not urgent for you to do it right now, just because you're watching an episode of People Always Ask. Now, if you want to, it's something to start thinking about. And if you want to dive deeper in, hopefully you've now taken some time to grab a notebook or a journal or your phone, and we can start to really look into what your trauma bond looks like. So I want you to just take a second and draw a line down the middle of your page. On one side, write rewards. On the other side, write punishments. Now, I want you to think about the bonds that you had in your childhood, even in your teen years, that you suspect maybe contribute to unhealthy dynamics that come up with other people in your adulthood. So take a second and really think, what behaviors were rewarded? For example, was it rewarded when I got really good grades? Was it rewarded when I put myself second and I was selfless? Now, the reward system in each household might look different. Culturally, there may be some overlaps, right? Educational conditions on how well we think children are doing are pretty common. Now, there's also rewards and consequences and punishments that come along with how you dress, how you present yourself, how you talk, how you interact with people, right? Some of us have fears of things like being too selfish, too self-concerned. So, on your punishment side, be really clear about what it is that would happen, if anything, in your history when you violate one of the unwritten rules of the family. How do you know? What tells you that? Is there shame? Is there blame? Is there name calling? Is there judgment? Is there gossip? Is there yelling and screaming? Is there physical violence? Really try to parse out for yourself. In my household, in my friendships, in the dynamics of my larger family system, even in the dynamics that I have with my job now. When I look at the rewards and punishments, have I gotten myself into a cycle? Most of us do not have 100% secure relationships everywhere in our lives. If we have any sort of distress in our history, usually we have distress in our relationships in our present. Trauma begets trauma. It's one of the sad realities. And because we start to internalize What really, I should say, gets injected into us message wise is that these rewards and consequences are the rewards and consequences, the ones set up by somebody who is abusing power, position, relationship. And so, oftentimes, in the most basic terms, our rewards and punishments are set up where what we learn is it's good to self sacrifice, it's beneficial for other people if I'm not too burdensome, if I don't take up too much space. And if I do, I will be called out my name, judged, looked at like something's wrong with me, bad. And so, a lot of the names and the messaging that we get, particularly that people who are in intersections of oppression get about what it means to live authentically. In our bodies, we might feel like, well, you know what I really wish I could do? I wish I could have great embodied sexual relationships. I wish that I could have a really secure job that pays me well, that I don't need to worry about, that I feel good about going to and I feel respected when I'm there. And these are radical notions that we're told we need to adjust and compromise to because the systems, as we're talking about, that we belong to oftentimes have this same trauma bonded history on a macro level, which means that it's not natural for people to feel like they want to work 60 hours a week. But there is a system of rewards and punishments for people who do not adhere to a certain type of system because the people who control that system, there will be pushback and punishment and fear, even from people who look like you, even from people in the same position as you, because they too have received and been injected with the same message around what is rewarded and what is punished and what's acceptable. And it has nothing to do with their natural reward and consequence system. One of the things that we really want to be careful for is that most of us don't get into several different types of trauma bonds. Most of us repeat the same cycle over and over and over in different places with different people. And a lot of us have relationships that are good. And the way that you know, and I'm always saying this, is you can actually feel safety in your body, right? There's going to first be a feeling. Allow yourself to notice what triggers you. Because if you don't have any insight right now into the role you're playing and participating in creating bonds that feel really negative, that feel really stagnant, like they're not going anywhere, you can't improve anything, you can't grow within the relationship, then the question becomes what's happening internally for you? What do you actually believe that's organizing the fact that you would stay close to people that actually don't really feel right in terms of growth, in terms of connection and openness and being authentic, that something about that version of you is being punished in some of your relationships, where other people, and hopefully somewhere else, you're able to experience yourself as more open, curious, authentic, able to receive feedback about yourself because there's a greater level of safety. Safety in your body is not something you can think yourself right into. A lot of times we need to work from the body up. So the challenge here is going to be A, do exactly what we just tried to do. See what your cycle looks like. What is it that you have internalized that maybe isn't healthy? Sometimes you might be the person who's on the receiving end of the abuse. And sometimes, if you're honest with yourself, you may be the one perpetuating behaviors that might teeter on controlling, abusive. And so most of us cannot do things we have not seen. So the good news is you can probably search your history and you're the expert on this. For how many times you think you've gotten into a dynamic with almost unnatural rewards and consequences that were reinforced by somebody who was more concerned about their own self-protection and their own needs, whether they were conscious about it or not, than they were with you. We have to be accountable. So the first step is always just notice What is your cycle? Now, the distressing part is even if you notice it, that doesn't mean you can leave. It doesn't mean you feel comfortable totally just abandoning anybody where it's present. It might be your family, it might be your partner, someone you really want to work on it with. And I always say, only you can say when enough is enough. I am not totally for canceling people and just cutting them out of your life, right? But I have a good um, friend and colleague within social work who has an elder who often says, you can give people whatever seat in your life that you want. Some people can have front row tickets, some people can be backstage, and others can be all the way up in the nosebleed. And if, and this is a real clear boundary setting moment, if in your body you start to sense that something about someone doesn't feel safe for you, back up. If it feels expansive, good, like it breeds something that really helps you feel authentic and curious, move towards it. Just that simple. Does it feel right? Does it feel good? Does it feel authentic? Move towards it. If it feels unsafe, if it doesn't feel right, even if I don't know why yet, the meaning will come. Trust that. And afterwards, when the meaning does come, if you want to move closer, move closer. That's totally your prerogative. But if you decide the feeling was telling you something important about this person and violating a boundary that you may have that you just haven't really named yet for them, you want to maintain whatever distance helps you take care of yourself and have compassion and care for them if you're going to keep knowing them at the same time. So, whatever distance you need, whether it's that front row seat and we feel safe there and we want to have that close relationship, or we want to put you a little bit further out into the back of the stadium, this is what boundaries really are based on. You're moving closer to the show if you're somebody I feel can really be trusted with the intimate workings of how my life works, my mind works, my heart connects, my spirit feels, right? And if not, I am doing my due diligence to establish my own boundaries by saying, well, I can trust that some of these things that have felt bad before. I have a cycle that I've identified here. I watched this episode I wrote down with the rewards and punishment score that I've internalized that I don't think are healthy. And now I'm going to make sure that when I start to feel like this cycle is coming up, rather than giving into the part of me that is traumatized and has a horrible history of believing this reward and punishment system, I'm going to do what I think will make me feel better. I'm going to go with my internal system of knowing, sit with myself, notice my triggers. And instead of anxiously trying to meet the needs of whoever's setting up this reward system for me, check back in with my own value system, check back in with my intuition about the situation. And if I need to say something and advocate for myself, I'm going to say something. And if I need to move away, I'm going to move away. These are things that you have every right to do. Naturally, in our bodies, nobody starts out okay with abuse. Nobody starts out okay with neglect. We adjust to the reality and we feel miserable while doing it. Nobody's at their best in those situations. So, hopefully, you can look back at your history. You can look back at your past relationships, your friendships right now, your job, even, and try to make sure that you are not repeating cycles which make it difficult for you to feel empowered in your own life. Because at the basis of this, what's always going to be present is something that feels like an unhealthy, unsafe dynamic where your power or yourself is being threatened. It may seem strange to you that people would stay within a trauma bond for a long time. You may beat yourself up because you have even stayed in a bond that now you're looking at your pattern, you're looking at your history, and you think, oh, wow, I thought it was different. But this rule system, this rewards, this punishment, it's the same. It's the same as with my ex, it's the same as with my friends. If that's what you're noticing, then I want you to relax, take a breath. We are capable of change, but we need to take the reins. One, understand you're not going to lose anything from taking care of yourself. Whatever and whomever you lose in the process of taking care of yourself is worth losing. The secondary part of this is always remember that you have the capability of identifying unhealthy relationships and what safety feels like. It is in our bodies. We have an ability to connect to this. So don't cut yourself short. Trust your intuition. Trust your body. Now, the third part of this is a lot of people get into trauma bonds, and it is not because they're stupid. It's not because something's wrong with them. There's no pathology behind it. It's simply that, as they say, hurt people hurt people. And so oftentimes it is our deep empathy and our deep compassion that is the glue that holds this system of rewards and consequences, rewards and punishments up. If we didn't believe to some degree we were stronger, we were smarter, we were better, we were more capable, we had a bigger capacity of holding pain, but because of our deep need for connection, which is human, on top of our deep empathy for why the person has set up the rewards and punishment system, we maintain unfair dynamics all the times in our life. We maintain because of our deep empathy and understanding, because of our perception that actually we're less broken. We have less to work on. It's going to be easier for us to cope. It's going to be easier for us to move on. It's going to be easier for us to stay connected with this person so we don't suffer the human consequence of grieving and being lonely. Because we're strong enough, we've been through enough, we have deep compassion for this person enough to deal with their system of rewards and consequences. Well, they just want me to do this, they just want me to do that. I'll just put myself on the back burner while they become the priority in the room because I can handle it. And that's actually the glue that maintains the trauma bond. Not that we believe the system of rewards and punishments makes sense. We'll complain about it, cry about it, hate it, and deeply desire the connection and have deep compassion for why the abusive tendencies might be present, right? And when we get scared, we might respond to our own fear with control. And it's a bad habit of a lot of families, of a lot of people in a lot of places. We get scared and we start controlling people. We start telling them what to do, how to act, how to be, what to do, what's acceptable. And we don't allow them to tell us what it is that feels like a natural boundary to them because we're scared. We are scared. And it maintains these unhealthy bonds where instead of doing things because there is a natural reward and a natural punishment, which is why we should do most things in our lives. You don't touch a hot stove because you'll burn yourself. There's a natural punishment to those things, right? You will end up in a more painful position with most of the things that hurt you in life, emotionally and otherwise. Now, being scared doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. That's not a painful emotion. That's just fear. That's just the unknown, right? And that's different than saying that there's something in your body telling you this relationship doesn't feel like it's growing, doesn't feel like it's helping you learn, doesn't feel like it's even helping you feel safe and have some space, even one little hour with somebody that feels safe in your life. Some of us, that's a big, big deal. And so in the people we choose, the places we choose, we want to really be focused and attentive on the fact that we're not repeating unhealthy bonds that have come up for us. As always, let's end this trauma bonding episode with a tarot pick of the day because the ancestors always know better than me, child. So we are going to make sure that whatever we know, the ancestors help us know, and we can really make sure that we have whatever message we need to have from this first season premiere episode of People Always Ask. We want to ask with our deck, and let me play the deck for the tarot. We have the Afro Goddess Tarot Arcanus, and that's by Andrea Furtick right there. That's a Black American artist giving us Black tarot decks to represent the melanated folks and me while I do our poll of the day about trauma bonding. And so our card that we got, we want to really make sure we can catch it. It's the God of Pentacles reversed. Now you know I like to have a highly melanated deck. And so you see my man here. And Pentacles oftentimes have to do with ideas of worth, wealth, success. And so when we're talking about trauma bonds, we're looking at this God of Pentacles reversed. Let me tell you what it is that they are telling us about our friend here. So the God of Pentacles reversed is our tarot card pick of the day. And in reverse, the God of Pentacles can indicate an unhealthy relationship with money and wealth, right? In America, a lot of trauma bonds have financial elements to them. The rewards and consequences that get set up, the punishments that are unnatural, actually tend to come with pentacles, money. And so you may need to be more self disciplined with spending. You can't create wealth if you're not keeping some for yourself, right? So self care rather than consumerism. You can't, and if you feel you're having trouble obtaining wealth at all, right? If you're getting stuck in a trap, maybe you should examine if you're subconsciously operating from a place of lack. So, do you have an internalized reward and punishment system that's telling you for some reason that it's not okay or it's not possible for you to take care of yourself, to make your own money, to get out of the system or abusive dynamic you're in and still be financially okay? Abundance can't come to you if you don't believe yourself to be abundant, right? If you don't believe in your own creativity, your own skills, your own ability, then you are not going to be abundant. Abundance can't come to you if you don't believe yourself to be abundant. Open yourself to the idea that you can have it. Also, this reversal can indicate the need to devalue money a bit. Are you neglecting everyone you love for the love of money? Realign your priorities to fit the highest good of all involved. So let's say this again. Realign your priorities for the best good of everyone involved. And so the God of Pentacles here in reverse is really telling us, let's examine if one of our trauma bonding rewards and punishment system actually involves something about a negative relationship with money and reward systems that are related to money and our relationship to money. Look at our families, look at our histories, right? What we really want to see in America, we have a legacy of this, is how many places have we replaced natural rewards and consequences, the things that we have put unnatural rewards and punishments on, related to work, related to money, that's confining, that's unhealthy, that's actually not aligned with our best interest. Save some for yourself. Do not buy everything to make yourself into the person you think you need to be. Trust yourself, trust your own internal gut instinct on this, and realign with your best self. That's what the God of Pentacles is telling us today. And I hope everybody out there has a wonderful, wonderful evening. Join us next week as we talk about another really tricky part of relationships, which is what happens if there's an affair and you still trying to stay together after a while. How do you recover? What does that even mean? Because we all know you can't just sweep it under the rug. So catch me and Gottman Level 3 trained licensed mental health counselor Stanley Kazo next week on People Always Ask How to Recover from an Affair. I will see you then.